as the possibility of extrajudicial killings. I never imagined that we would be witnessing extrajudicial killings after the exit of, with due respect, the late President Moi. Mr. Speaker, Robert Chepkwony, prime age of 27 years old, while exercising his right on the matter of the economy of his county, namely tea farming, was shot dead. I don't understand what the police are doing in our villages. Mr. Speaker, as one of the most tear-gassed leaders in this country, I've been tear-gassed many times, and severally life rounds have been shot around me. It is becoming so easy these days, Mr. Speaker, to see the police in villages releasing tear gas. You and I, and many of you, we used to only smell of tear gas whenever we would go on strike at the University of Nairobi. But these days, police are following villagers into their homes. They are hardening the youth. I think time has come. We should call the inspector of police. Now he has settled into office. He acclimatizes us with the new way in which the police are using rubber bullets, tear gas, and live rounds. We must condemn this completely. Mr. Speaker, the issue raised by the Senator of Migori, gold mining and copper in Makalda. Mr. Speaker, this is only speaking for what is now a national problem. You go to Ikolomani in Kakamega, Rosterman in Kakamega, Masienze in Kakamega, Liranda in Kakamega, Mr. Speaker, same story. Mr. Speaker, we have to emphasize to the new minister in the Ministry of Mining that only companies that are licensed to do gold mining should be allowed to go to Nyatige, to Kakamega, to Marsabit, to West Pokot, and Taita Taveta, where we have the rich mineral resource. These white people, in the name of licenses for exploration, they are exploiting our resource. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, a company called Shanta has been in Kolomani exploring for the last 21 years. And the minister is there. I hope my good friend, Governor Joho, will live up to it so that we bring this to the end. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the issue of intern doctors. Colleagues, an intern doctor is not a student. An intern doctor is a doctor who is working in his first year of medical practice. He has already taken the Hippocratic oath. He can practice medicine anywhere and everywhere. Let the government recognize medical intern doctors as doctors, because that is who we are. And by the way, whenever you go to Mata Hospital, Nairobi Hospital, those young people you are seeing who are treating you, they are on call. And the first people to be on the first line of call in my profession are the young doctors, the interns. So the interns are there on duty doing locum. They're the ones who are taking care of you. And when it is difficult, they invite us, the senior doctors, to then step in. Let us give them their respect. And it's a shame that a country like this, where the doctor-patient ratio is so terrible that any doctor should be finding it difficult to find employment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I wanted to make a comment on Senator Sigei's statement. Mr. Speaker, You know, this issue of police brutality, police force being misused on citizens, Mr. Speaker, is something that this House must fight. And Mr. Speaker, I was expecting that perhaps in that statement, probably the owner of that statement could have requested that one of the biggest motions that we had in this House at the time that we were faced with the lowest moment of our country, when the Gen Z movement was forced to visit this House to call Parliament to order, senators in this House, through the majority leaders' motion, expressed themselves overwhelmingly on the issues of police brutality, on the issues of police mistreatment, and on the issues that goes with abduction, go with extrajudicial killing. And Mr. Speaker, it's disappointing that many moons after this conversation, the resolutions of this House that were sent to the President of this country, even a single of them has not been taken seriously. Mr. Speaker, we resolved in this House that those young people that were affected by that demonstration in terms of killing must be compensated, Mr. Speaker. There is no police who will ever know the magnitude of their deeds if those young people are not compensated. We said in this House, Mr. Speaker, that young people who have been abducted must be trained and must be released from those abductions, Mr. Speaker. We said in our resolution in this House, Mr. Speaker, that those people, young people who are arrested and are in courts for crimes that don't make sense must be forgiven, Mr. Speaker. We said in this House, Mr. Speaker, that police who have meted on Kenyans' extrajudicial killings and did things that are wrong to Kenyans must be brought to book, Mr. Speaker. Now you come to a situation where many months later, Mr. Speaker, there is a statement that needs to go to a committee over the same actions of the same policemen, Mr. Speaker. What are we doing? Mr. Speaker, I think that that committee, the first stop that the committee must go to is to go to the resolution of this House that went to the President and make sure that every single issue that was in that resolution, Mr. Speaker, must be implemented. Mr. Speaker, I felt it very badly the other day when multimedia students went to riot. Actually, they were demonstrating, they were not rioting. And Mr. Speaker, a policeman, actually 3 of them, ganged up on this young man, beat him up, broke his legs, he could not be able to move, and they tried to drag him, to take him into the vehicle. And this young Kenyan, a student who's just expressing himself, Mr. Speaker, when he could not be able to walk with this policeman to the car, you heard a policeman saying, and I quote, "Tumpatie dawa kidogo," Mr. Speaker. And this dawa was basically taking a tear gas canister and throwing it on the face of an already beaten and battered young man on his campus, Mr. Speaker. This is an issue that, as a House, we must sit on and work on it and finish it once and for all, and it only starts by making sure that the resolution that we made in this House is implemented to the full, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, my last comment will be on the issue of mental health, Mr. Speaker. We passed, when we were in Turkana, Mr. Speaker, I know that this year we are also going to Busia. In fact, a few weeks we'll be going to Busia on the Senate Mashinani. When we were in Turkana, Mr. Speaker, we did pass one of the most important bills on community health promoters, Mr. Speaker. But if you look at the status of some of the officers of people who are working even in government, mental health has become a serious crisis in this country, Mr. Speaker. In Eldoret, for instance, Mr. Speaker, almost 11% of cases of suicide because of mental health is going on, Mr. Speaker. I think that in a place like Migori County, where I come from, Mr. Speaker, it will be important to expand the community health promoters network to also include some community health promoters who can be able to help our people. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mungatana.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii, na mimi nitoe maoni yangu kuhusu maneno ambayo yaliwekwa hapa mbele na kamati, mwenyekiti wa kamati ya kawi ya bunge hili. Bwana Spika, mimi na Kenya nzima tulishuhudia wakati waziri Chirchir alipokuwa waziri wa kawi, Kenya nzima ikienda gizani ama kukosa taa, kukosa umeme kwa usiku mzima, Kenya nzima. Jambo hili lilikuja likaregelewa wakati waziri mpya Bwana Opiyo Wandayi alipochaguliwa. Punde tu akaenda kufanya sherehe, tena Kenya nzima ikawa katika hali ya giza. Na nyakati hizi zote mbili, aibu zote hizi mbili ambazo Kenya, ambao ni uchumi mkubwa katika bara Afrika, ilipata, tumeelezewa kwamba kuna shida ya kubeba ama uchukuzi wa ile kawi, instability katika kubeba ile kawi kutoka sehemu moja mpaka ingine. Na tumeambiwa kwamba shida ni kwamba KETRACO wanapata shida kwa sababu ya kukosa yani instability ya ile system. Kukosa yani instability ya ile system. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, juzi tumepata habari kutoka kwa vyombo vya habari na kwingineko kwamba kuna group ama kuna watu ambao wanataka kuwekeza kwa sehemu ya kawi, na grupu hii Bwana Spika ni watu wa Adani. Tungependa sana kamati ya kawi wawaite hawa watu kuhusu uwekezaji wa pesa zao na pesa za wananchi wa Kenya katika sekta hii ya kawi. Tunataka kujua kama kweli kuna ukweli kuhusu maneno ya KETRACO, na kama ni kweli, je, mipango hii iko wazi? Hatutaki kukaa kungojea tuje tuambiwe baadaye kama haya yanayofanyika upande wa uwanja wa ndege. Tunataka sasa kamati hii ya kawi ya Senate watafute ukweli, waite waziri wa kawi, waite katibu wa kudumu, waite kampuni ya KETRACO, waelezee wa Kenya kama kuna ukweli ndani ya madai haya ya kwamba kuna uwezekano wa kuleta pesa ili stability patikane katika usambazaji wa kawi katika Kenya hii. Ya pili na mwisho, Bwana Spika, nimefurahi sana na ninampongeza Mheshimiwa Hamida kwa vile ameyashughulikia sana mambo ya afya ya kiakili. Mimi ningependa wakati kamati hii inaangalia kuhusu swala la alilolileta hapa kwa bunge hili, kwamba ikiwezekana tunataka kujua kama kungewekwa pesa ama investment katika kila county ya Kenya kwa ajili ya wafanyikazi wa serikali ambao wanapata shida ya kimawazo, haswa wale ambao wanafanya kazi za usalama. Ingekuwa ni jambo la maana kamati pia iangalie kama kaunti zote tungekuwa na centers ama mahali ambapo wafanyikazi wa kiserikali, haswa wa sekta ya usalama, wao wanaenda na kupata usaidizi, kwa sababu Bwana Spika, tumepata shida nyingi na habari mbaya ya watu wetu ambao wanafanya kazi kwa kitengo cha usalama. Unasikia mtu ameenda na aliyaona kule alikoenda, kisha mwisho akakimbia ile kazi kwa sababu ameona mazito na ile kazi ameiwacha. Watoto wanaumia, amerudi kwenda kazi za mjengo kwa sababu kule hawezi kwenda tena. Na tunapoteza watu wengi ambao wangeendelea kutusaidia kwa upande wa mtengo wa usalama. Kwa hivyo tunaomba kama hiyo kamati ya Senate inaangalia mambo hayo, waangalie pia uwezekano wa kutoa recommendation kwamba kila county tuwe na mahali ambapo watu wa serikali, wafanyikazi wa serikali wanaweza kwenda kupata usaidizi kwa mambo ya mental health. Asante sana Bwana Speaker.
Senator Roba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the women of Kenya, and particularly the widows of this country, I'd like to add my voice to Senator Miraj's statement, Mr. Speaker. For those who have been following, Senator Miraj has highlighted a case where you have a widow who is following up on properties that were owned by the family, particularly the husband, and a bank account was used to take an overdraft of 59 million. And in that instance, Mr. Speaker, it appears as if the bank, Diamond Trust Bank, somehow colluded with people, according to her statement, and ensured that they then auctioned properties worth 70 million to allegedly claim back this 59 million that was taken as an overdraft from an account of a deceased person, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the reason I stand to add my voice on this is because day in and out, I receive so many complaints from women, particularly widows or daughters of men who have passed away, and there's a lot of property that is up for grabs, Mr. Speaker. More often than not, you will see that even the discrepancies on how women are being dealt with at these banking institutions is that they start asking you for all sorts of documentation just to ensure that you are unable to follow on the unclaimed financial assets of the deceased persons, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've been on record in this House talking about the Unclaimed Financial Assets as well, the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFA, who are dealing with certain matters that touch on assets of those who have passed away, Mr. Speaker. It is very unfortunate now that Miss Ali, she's called Miss Noor Ali Islam, who is the widow of Anwar Mohammed by Yusuf, has lost property worth 70 million, and on top of that, the bank is still claiming that there is a 17 million balance that was accrued due to this overdraft, the alleged overdraft that was taken after the man had passed on, Mr. Speaker. This kind of banking fraud is very, very common, Mr. Speaker, and the target most of the time is women. Women who most of the time they entrust their banking and their finances and their assets to the men, to their husbands, to their spouses, their partners. And unfortunately, when they pass on, they are found in these circumstances where it is up for grabs, Mr. Speaker. I want to particularly speak to the CBK because I'm dealing with so many of these cases, and every time you go to central bank asking for certain things or even just inquiring on certain procedures, even when it comes to auctioning, Mr. Speaker, as a woman, it's so difficult. They almost force you to get money to go and get a legal representative. It becomes a whole other affair, Mr. Speaker. So on behalf of the women of Kenya, and particularly the widows, Mr. Speaker, I hope that when this statement, because it has been referred to the Standing Committee of Finance and Budget, which is the same committee that I referred the statement of unclaimed financial assets, Mr. Speaker, I hope that when this statement reaches there, it will be dealt with, not as they dealt with the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, because, Mr. Speaker, they have not come back to me on all the inquiries, and some of them were touching on issues such as this. I hope that the chair and the committee will take this matter seriously, because women are suffering, Mr. Speaker. Some of us who are daughters of our fathers who passed on are still dealing with issues of assets, and the fundamental basis of this statement is that it is actually a form of gender-based violence, Mr. Speaker, that is targeted at women in the assumption that we do not understand finances, in the assumption that we do not know issues on banking, in the assumption that we cannot fight for our assets, Mr. Speaker. So I hope that that committee deals with it, as I will also be pursuing the issue of the unclaimed financial assets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice Kenya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support the statement by Senator Esther Kinyuri. And Honorable Speaker, I feel for the family and for the life lost of a skilled officer, the doctor intern that is supposedly had committed suicide. Honorable Speaker, as we go around selling the resources of our country, if it is not an allegation of an airport being sold, it could be a port or any other major resource of this country, we should be paying attention to the challenges that the public sectors are experiencing. Mr. Speaker, sir, if it is, well, just the other few days ago, the interns, doctor interns were on the streets. And Honorable Speaker, if it is not the doctors, it is the lecturers running around on the streets. If it is not the lecturers, we have teachers demonstrating on the streets. And Honorable Speaker, this is not a death in isolation. We have often seen or heard about police officers who shoot their whole families and kill themselves, Honorable Speaker. We have had teachers who've committed suicide. I rise here to just say that in a neighboring ward from where I come from, called Kanyikela Ward in Dewa Sub-County, we have had 2 teachers committing suicide, Honorable Speaker. So if it is not teachers committing suicide, it is police officers killing themselves or killing their families. And here we have a doctor intern. Honorable Speaker, we all know what goes on in the training of doctors. And so it is an unfortunate situation, and as a country, we must attend to the challenges that are bedeviling the public sector. Honorable Speaker, when I come to the statement by the Senator of Bomnet, I feel for the demonstrators, but Honorable Speaker, it brings me back to the video we all watched, of, if not all, on the day the multimedia students were demonstrating, Honorable Speaker. It was so unfortunate, so painful for me as a mother to see a young, helpless man being beaten brutally by police officers. And Honorable Speaker, on this day in the evening, one young girl wrote to me, and I invite all the police officers out there to listen to what this young girl said. These police officers are not seeing the future. Their own kids and relatives won't be able to afford those school fees. And Honorable Speaker, this was a writing from a young girl, barely 19 years old. But it tells all of us about the fear the young people have about their future. Honorable Speaker, I condemn the killing of the demonstrators along with the killing of other demonstrators in the past. The senseless killing that we saw on the 25th of June, Honorable Speaker, and a number of parents, we are still being told that a number of people are still looking for their lost children or brothers or sisters. The question we are posing to the government is, where are these people? We last saw a number of bodies from some quarry. Incidentally, there were only one gender. The question is, who was this that was just choosing on women or girls? Where are the boys? Where are the bodies of the boys that they could have been with? Honorable Speaker, as a country, we must attend to the challenges that the public sector is going through. If it is low investment, as a country, we must look into it. I feel for the intern doctor. I feel for all the Kenyans who go through that suffering. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support.
Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to comment on the statement that was requested by Senator Miraj Abdullahi on the issue of Buxton. Yes, it is true at the Committee of Roads and Transportation and Housing, we looked into this matter and concluded the issue. But it is very sad to hear that the county government of Mombasa has not implemented the resolutions or the recommendations that we gave. That is to share the housing units to the 184 former tenants of Buxton Estate. And Mr. Speaker, it's also sad to note that the same people who had requested, who has petitioned this House, and that's why we investigated this issue, have not benefited from the ruling or the recommendations of our committee. Mr. Speaker, we are going to look into this issue again by inviting the governor of Mombasa, because it is sad that this House is taken for a ride, or they are not taking our resolution seriously, and when it comes to the county governments, Mr. Speaker. And I'm going to join that statement with the other statement that was requested by Senator Esther Okenyuri on the issue of Dr. Desri Mora Obogi. As Kiambu, we have lost a doctor who it is said that she died of suicide at the Kiambu Gatundu County Referral Hospital, Mr. Speaker. I would urge the Committee of Health to invite the governor of Kiambu to come and explain the working conditions of the people or the doctors in these hospitals, Mr. Speaker. Because we realize that doctors in Kiambu County, first of all, they don't get their salaries on time. And second of all, Mr. Speaker, they were moved from the NHIF that we all know that covers their medical expenses to a private to a private insurance company called MUA, Mr. Speaker. And I brought that statement here, and it is almost a year, and the Committee on Health has not responded, neither invited the governor of Kiambu to come and explain, Mr. Speaker. So I recommend that the governor should be here so that the working conditions of doctors in Kiambu County are well taken care of. Because you cannot go to a doctor to get treatment, yet the doctor is sick himself or is suffering from something, Mr. Speaker. So they should be taken care of mentally, financially, and even working conditions, Mr. Speaker. So I support those two statements.
Senator Professor Tom Ojenda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the statement on copper and gold mining in Nyatike sub-county in Migori County as a statement that mirrors mining in various parts of this country. I think we've had the Kakamega mines, same framework. We have mining in other counties, including Siaya County. Mr. Speaker, this statement speaks to political interest in the mining industry and the need to ensure that those who engage in these activities under the Mining Act comply with the law and ensure that all and sundry who engage in mining through subsidiaries and companies, and Mr. Speaker, there's a growing infiltration of Chinese miners who go into countries, get into arrangements with some of our governors and county governments. And Mr. Speaker, what we witnessed in Makalda, in Migori, is an embarrassment, where the governor and an MCA were involved in scuffles because of the lack of understanding and or clear compliance with the legal framework that governs mining in that area, and clear interests, Mr. Speaker, that are palpable. Mr. Speaker, I know Makalda has been an area where gold and copper have been mined by individuals for a long time. And I think a lot of Migori, as a county, has that problem. Mr. Speaker, the Environment and Land Committee needs to put to a halt sporadic problems that arise in various counties in this country because of unregulated mining. We have seen, even in Khalwale County, we have issues touching on mining. I call upon, Mr. Speaker, the chair of the Committee on Lands and Environment, to visit Migori County. This will help as an example, in my view, to have a clear framework between the role that counties play and the shares that counties get from mining, because such shares, Mr. Speaker, go well into activities or CSR that will ensure that residents of the particular county benefit from mining activities. We know, for instance, the ratios involving, we've had ratios involving mining where national, both national and county governments ought to benefit from the activity. But the activities, Mr. Speaker, sir, must be regulated first. Mr. Speaker, I hope that this statement by Senator Eddie Okech will lead to this committee visiting Makalda so that we can ascertain, Mr. Speaker, the framework that governs the mining of copper and gold in Migori County, because that will then also, Mr. Speaker, help with the regulation of mining so that other counties can also learn from this framework, because the Migori one is a big embarrassment and has exposed this sector and the role that foreigners play in mining and basically in prospecting, mining, and commercialization of minerals that we know under the Mining Act essentially belong to government. That is the first, the Mining Act. Minerals and mineral oils belong to government. But we now see that delicate framework between the national and the 47 county governments. Mr. Speaker, this is an important feat. I ask the chair, Mr. Methu, aside his other Murima activities, to focus on this area. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mundege.
Bwana Spika, nataka kuchangia mambo ya ambayo ilikuwa nazungumzia mambo ya hela ya county. Yangu ni kusema ni asante sana kwa wale magavana ambaye tumewaona wa
Senator Mundege, unachangia zile
statement
ambazo zimeuliziwa?
No.
Ngoja mpaka tufikie ile hoja ambayo unataka kuzungumzia.
Asante Bwana Spika.
Next order. Now, honorable senators, I will, pursuant to Standing Order 45, to rearrange the order paper. We will now move to prosecute order number 16. Clerk, proceed to call that order, please.
Order number 16, the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 38 of 2024. Second reading.
Now, honorable senators, the floor is open for debate on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 38 of 2024. Senator Mundege Alexander Munye.
Kaunti zetu 47. Yangu ni kushukuru magavana ambaye tulisikia wakitanjwa ama wale walikuwa kwa orodha ambayo wamefanya kazi nzuri, na vile walifanya vizuri kwa sababu ni njia ya kutuonyesha ushujaa wa kusaidia ukatusi katika mashinani. Nikitaka kusema yangu si ungi mkono ambaye kupunguza ile hela county zinapatiwa, kwa sababu tukikumbuka mwaka uliopita county zote tulipatia bilioni 385, na tukiwapatia zile hela magavana walikuwa nataka bilioni 425, na tulikuwa tunaona hizo pesa tukiwapatia asitaweza kusaidia ukatuzi katika mashinani. Kama nikiangalia katika Embu County, hizo pesa ya mwaka jana ilikuwa bilioni 385. Sisi katika Embu County, Madam Speaker, Embu County tulipata bilioni 5,200, na katika Embu County hizo bilioni 5,200 huwa unakuwa gavana na serikali yake na MCA wakikaa chini kwenda kusema vile sitafanya kazi. Unakuta katika Embu County kuna shinda, kwa sababu unakuta gavana wakati alichaguliwa alikuta pending bill na wage bill, na zile hela vile sinafanya kazi unakuta pending wage bill huwa kila mwezi analipa milioni 250, na assembly anaipatia milioni kama 50. Unakuta ile hela sinabakia pesa kidogo. Kwa hivyo Speaker, mimi naona hizi pesa haitoshi. Pia unakuta katika kazi ya county kama Embu, zile hela unakuta inafaa kila shule ya mchingi yote iwe na ECD moja, na unakuta hakuna pesa ya kufanya hiyo kazi. Unakuta hiyo hela haitoshi, unakuta inafaa kila mashinani, kila location ama location dogo iwe na maji ya kulima, mambo ya kulima, na hiyo pesa ndio inafaa iangalia hata mambo ya mifugo. Pia hiyo hela inafaa iangalie mambo mengi. Kwa hivyo nataka kusema Speaker, ile hela haitoshi, na pia ile hela unakuta katika kaunti nyingi, asua kaunti ya Embu, unakuta mambo ya hospitali, unakuta wananchi na wale walituchagua mashinani, kwa sababu ya ile pesa ile tunapata, unakuta katika Embu County ni kidogo, kwa sababu unakuta tukipatia governor zile pesa ikienda Embu County alikuta pending bill ya bilioni 2,200, unakuta. Kwa hivyo unakuta zile pesa haitoshi. Kwa hivyo Speaker, nataka kusema wale watu tutachagua waende wakaongea, nataka kusema wawe na usunja ya kuzungumzia kaunti zetu, kwa sababu kaunti zetu zimeumia, na unaona magavana wengi wamejaribu kusaidia kaunti, lakini unaona tukiwapatia hela kidogo kama vile inapitishwa bilioni 380 inakuwa ni kidogo, kuna bilioni 5 ile tulikuwa tumepeana mwaka jana. Kama sasa unakuta kaunti nyingi itakuta haitafanya kazi mzuri ile nafaa. Speaker, ukiangalia kama county government ya Embu, unakuta gavana mwaka uliopita kwa ile gavana wa zamani alikuwa anaokota milioni 400, na saa hii serikali iliyoko katika wakati huu imejaribu sana kutoka milioni 400 ifike milioni 750. Kwa hivyo sisi tukiwa hapa, tukiwa maseneta, ningesema maseneta wote tuungane pamoja, tupinge yale serikali kuu ya national ikiwa pia ile pesa ikiwa inakaliwa chini na MPs. Ile pesa wametupatia, tupinge ile bilioni 380, tuseme ni kidogo, kwa sababu hao MP wanatupatia hizo pesa. Tumesikia wengi wakisema magavana wafanyi kazi. Ningetaka kuambia MP wote katika Kenya mzima, mambo ya kuangalia mambo ya kazi sio mambo ya MP, ni mambo yetu tukiwa maseneta.